Hi, good evening, team members. This is Dr. Joe. Just wanted to do a little review regarding the indirect plan messages that you guys just completed and I finished grading. I'm going to go over a few things here. The first thing is we're going to talk about how um, earlier chapters talked about the three-part message format for every message. Then we'll go over the general indirect message plan. We'll talk then about uh, the refused request message plan, and I'm going to go over the common errors that I saw on the papers. And believe me, you guys aren't the first. This happens every time, whether it's a face-to-face class or online class, it doesn't matter. This is a very, very difficult assignment, so it's really a hard one to grasp. So I want to make sure that you don't make the same mistakes for the persuasive request, because it does follow the indirect message plan, the general one, and then we'll adapt it for specific messages, specifically your benchmark rewrite. And then I want to talk about how to list the weaknesses, and also the persuasive sales message plan, which is actually your cover message for the chapter 11 assignment that you guys are going to be doing. So let's begin by talking about the indirect, general indirect message plan. As the textbook says, you want to first begin with a strategic buffer. Okay, so remember that the text mentions cushioning. So this is a strategy designed to overcome the reader's resistance. They might want to say no. You know, right off the top or right off the bat, they might want to say no. Typically, the strategic buffer may be an explanation, a review of justifying facts, whatever you think will work. But the first and above all thing that you need to do is you need to acknowledge any preceding message. Okay, so this is going to be important with the refused request message. You want to acknowledge the preceding message, what you're answering. You're going to set up the negative news. You don't want to bring it to the forefront. You want to try to de-emphasize it. That's what developing the strategy is all about. We want to try to present it in a more positive light. And always the way to do that is to offer an alternative solution. So you might be able to think of something that you can do to help the reader at this time. Show concern, sincere concern. It's also a very powerful strategy in creating the goodwill that you're going to build on in the closing. So let's move on now to what kind of buffers. You want them to be neutral and positive. Again, acknowledge any prior discussion or awareness of the situation. You want to make sure to put the reader in a good position to accept the bad news. For example, you want to thank the person for bringing the matter to light. Offer a relevant compliment. So let's take a look at that suggested solution that I sent to you guys after I graded yours. All right, so let's look at the opening paragraph. It's just one sentence. All it is acknowledging that you received the request, the inquiry from Ashley, and we have that compliment going on in there. It follows in the next paragraph. So the first paragraph is subject. It ties into with the subject. It ties in with the request, and it's just simply acknowledging receipt of the previous message. Then we move on to the body, the compliment, the you viewpoint. What's going to make the reader feel good. Okay, so the chapter also talks about benefits that are internal, external, that kind of a thing. We're going to go into that a little bit more later. Always using positive language, and you want to give the reasons for the no, so it helps de-emphasize the negative. Okay, so that's why the next paragraph starts with the compliment. You're smart, Ashley, and striving to further your education by returning to school to take additional courses that improve your career skills. Now we start with the reasons. Okay, we're setting up that strategy a little bit more. Thriving companies are able to offer tuition reimbursement to selected employees when they return to school. These programs are expensive to an organization because they involve the actual cost of tuition and books and the cost of program administration. Okay, nothing negative there. Okay, this is just facts. I say over and over, go stick to the facts. Okay, if you stick to facts, you'll keep the message in a positive light. we'll then move on to the next paragraph, and this is where we continue with the reasons for the no. And this is something that Ashley can find out easily. Okay, it's not, behind closed doors kind of a thing. Clearly, you know that First Federal is facing stiff competition in the banking industry, and the profits have not been strong. We don't want to say that they're sinking, because that scares your reader. You might lose a valuable employee. You don't want to do that. So reword it, restructure to use the positive words that we learned in Chapter 4. Although a tuition reimbursement program cannot be considered at this time, that's a secret phrase that helps be forward-looking. Okay, at this time, without promising things that you may not be able to keep in the future. But as a bank, we can offer you a no-interest loan or a line of credit to help you with your expenses, and a flexible work schedule. I'm pretty sure you all work, whether it be, a stay-at-home mom or dad, or have a job outside of this class. And obviously the reason you're taking it online is because of things like that. And so it makes it a little bit more flexible. So if Ashley wants to continue working there, we're going to work with her and give her a flexible work schedule, work around her school class times. And then we go into the closing, and we want to keep it positive. We want to show goodwill and support. And this is where we use that courtesy copy, letting Ashley know that you spoke with the Chief Executive Officer. Notice it's spelled out. Richard Houston joins me in expressing our appreciation for your fine work that you're doing here at First Federal, and we admire your desire to advance your education and wish you all the best. Notice there's no rubber stamp phrases or anything like that, okay? So again, notice we have a 3-part message. We start with the opening paragraph, which is an introduction kind of a thing, and then we go to the body, or the content, and then we go to the closing. So keep that in mind when you're writing any other messages. Okay, so let's move on now, and I want to talk about apologizing. You want to be sure that when you're delivering the bad news, you don't start off with an apology, okay? First of all, if you start off with an apology saying, sorry, we can't do this for you, that's you're putting that refusal right out front there, and you don't want to do that. You want to slowly get to it. That's what indirect is all about, okay? You want to slowly get to it. Give the reasons first. So the only time that you would apologize is if your company is at fault, okay? If that's the case, if the company has done something wrong, you want to make an apology linked with a plan of action. So this is how we're going to fix it. That's how you help to restore goodwill. This is the compromise. This is the alternative solution. Make the apology early in the message and then move on. Don't put the blame on anybody in the company, okay? Just state the facts. State the facts. This is what happened. This is how we're going to fix it. If you're not directly at fault, then you don't want to make an apology, because it will make you appear that you're in the wrong. And they often have, if you do use an apology, it often has legal implications. You might get sued, and you've got it in writing that you're taking the blame. So let's talk about the refuse request. So now we've got that general indirect plan. The first thing you have to think about is that the news is bad. You must refuse, and your goals are to say no, but you still want to maintain goodwill. So you must really, really, really present convincing reasons. You have to use tact. So there's the general indirect message plan. You clearly indicate you're responding, present the reasons using positive language, and the you viewpoint, the benefit to the reader. Remember, we do that. We learned that in Chapter 4. The best way to do that is put yourself in the position of the recipient of your message. How would you like to hear the no so that it doesn't make you feel so bad? You have to refuse clearly and positively. You got to de-emphasize the negative, and don't forget that counter proposal or compromise. So this is what I talk about when I talk about the indirect message plan. This is kind of what we're looking at, okay? So hopefully this will help you a little bit more, breaking it out into the 3-part message. So these are some of the common errors that I saw on your refused request messages. First of all, I want to refer you back to Exhibit 2.3 2-3, the audience analysis checklist on page 24. It helps you determine whether or not your message, who's it being sent to. If it's internal, inside the company, you're probably going to use a memorandum or an email. Okay, you got to make sure that if you got to understand the difference. So if it's going to be external, you'll more than likely use a formal letter or a more formal version of an email. The thing is that the instructions, the actual assignment instructions, in this one in particular, I told you that the format is going to be memorandum. So it did say it in the assignment instructions. Some of you forgot that it's got to be on company stationery, so to create a type of stationery, and make sure that the word memorandum was in there somewhere in the form. It also has these headings, at least these 4, where it's the date, the to, the from, and the subject. As we saw in the example, there was a courtesy copy, but the only time that you use it is if you're mentioning somebody in the body somewhere of the message. You want to make sure that they see the copy of what you've sent. If you're not sending a courtesy copy to anybody, then take out that CC. I know everybody uses the templates, which is great, but you need to take out the CC if it's not being used. Also, make sure to include job titles for the recipient and or sender, and if there's the courtesy copy, you want to make sure that you have those. Chapter 2 also tells us that in a memorandum format, we typically omit the salutation and the signature block. So you don't say "Dear Ms." or "Mr." You don't sign it with your full, your full name and title, and that all that information is in the heading. You might want to just include an extension or a phone number, especially if it's internal. It's different if it's going external. You want to make sure that they have all of your contact information, and absolutely you can have your signature block there. But and a salutation. But again, it's all about the formality, so you got to keep that in mind. Okay, so again, the 3-message format, and also I want to bring up about using the sentence and paragraph length and unity that we talked about in chapter 4. Count those words. Count those words in your sentences. Try to limit the sentence content. Don't use, don't embellish. Don't use a lot of flowery words. This isn't an English class. We want to get to the point. We want to be concise. We want to be, right on point. Make sure to break up your paragraphs so that you have the main idea and then the follow-up, the main idea and then the follow-up. And so, the bottom line is we're going to take that general indirect plan and adapt it to the refused request. So in the opening, you should have acknowledged the receipt of the initial request, and so on and so forth. So I think I've already gone over this. You just need to look at it to help strengthen your understanding. This is really important. Avoid making promises of future availability of the program or any kind of promotions. You want to shift the focus away from the negative response, and this is why we tried to figure out what we can do now, that compromise. Okay, so now I've gone over the common errors. Now I want you to avoid those same types of errors in the persuasive message. So your benchmark rewrite, okay? Look at your benchmark writing that you did in Module 1. I'm sure that most of you realized that you didn't have the 3-part message plan. You didn't do the opening like you should. You probably introduced yourself, went into a whole big schmeal about it, and you basically used the selfish kind of an attitude by saying, I need this, I need you to do this, I, okay? We don't want to do that. We want to show how this is going to be beneficial for all of the employees. So the way to do that is to make sure that you know your readers. You want to choose and develop the targeted reader benefits. How do we do that? With proof, with facts. Include in your opening, when you're persuading, you include a startling statistic. You ask questions that you will then follow up with answers. You want to use the persuasive appeals, and we'll talk about that a little bit. You want to make it easy for the readers to comply. So just remember that by having evidence, by having proof and facts, it helps to justify. It makes them realize that, oh, maybe this is a good thing for us to do. So this is what I was talking about earlier. Identify those benefits. They're going to either be tangible or intangible. And what I mean by the tangible is it's something that you can actually measure. Okay, so tangible reward, something that saves time, saves money, saves trouble, or something that's going to make the reader feel good and gain prestige or feel like they've influenced. That's the intangible rewards. Intrinsic is the benefit that comes automatically to the reader by complying with your request. Extrinsic benefit would be something like receiving a door prize, having a free dinner at an event, things like that. And so you want to try to achieve this by using appeals. So the common technique for achieving the goal of ensuring the reader sees the benefit is called scenario painting. It's a description that pictures the reader in the sample situation enjoying the promised benefits. So what kind of appeals are you going to use? Well, you're going to use either logic-based, emotion-based, or character-based. Logic is where you might appeal to them saving money or time, okay? Advertisements that rely on science and or numbers, car insurance ads, things like that. So let's think about the persuasive request, your benchmark writing assignment, okay? What kind of an appeal can you use in the beginning? Do we want to use logical, emotional, or character-based? Well, logical is numbers, okay? So if you show evidence that you've done research and about other companies, other banks, for instance, that do use the tuition and book reimbursement program, what kind of benefits came out of it? Are the employees sticking around? Are they moving up? What kind of benefits are there? But another logical benefit that you'll notice if you do your research is that there's a tax credit for employers that do offer that program. Okay, you can also use emotion-based. All right, pat the reader on the back, kind of a thing. Okay, talk about their and character-based. Talk about their egos, their ethos. Okay, their egos. Compliment them on, how they went to school, they got to where they are, so on and so forth. I hope that makes sense to you guys. But one thing that you have to remember is that you don't want to get too caught up in your winning appeal and neglect the action part of the message. All right, what's the action? You want the program to be started. So your goal is to ask the reader for something that they're likely to oppose. You must develop a strategy that's going to convince the reader to comply. Again, put yourself in the reader's place and think about the reasons that you would come up with to say no, and make sure that you already have the evidence that proves that they don't have to say no. They can say yes, and this is why. So it's really important to gain your reader's attention in your opening. Gain the reader's attention, and that helps you set up your strategy. Then in the body and the content area, this is where you're going to use your persuasion, the you viewpoint, the benefit to the company, the benefit to the other employees, the benefit to the owner. Make sure that you make the request very clearly without any negatives. Don't use the selfish, it's all about me kind of a thing. And then remind the reader about what the request is in your closing. Recall that appeal. And don't forget to talk about an action date. Okay? You always want to find out by a certain time. For instance, in the benchmark writing assignment, the persuasive request, you would like to have an answer before the next semester starts so that you can prepare, that kind of a thing. So I hope that helps give you an idea. So I want you to avoid the common errors that I often see on the persuasive request. Again, use that audience analysis checklist. This is an internal message. It's semi-formal. You're writing it to the CEO. But you don't have to use the dear Ms. or Mr. or whatever, okay? So again, look at the open, the body, and the closing message plan. Adapt that general indirect plan. Gain the attention. Determine your strategy. Use the U viewpoint. What's in it for the reader? Uh, Look on pages 160 to 161 to help you a little bit more with that. Determine the strategy. And use one or more, you can use all of them, of the types of appeals. In the body, you want to continue your appeal. Use the factual information to support your reason for the persuasive request. Cite examples from sources that you've researched online. Avoid words that bring to mind the reasons for them to say no. What can you offer to avoid the refusal? And then in the closing, again, avoid that use of the selfish, blunt approach. You can read up more on that on page 164. Restate your request using clear, concise wording, and emphasize your passion for the resolution. Don't forget to offer an end date. Okay, let's see. So now I want to move on to the persuasive sales message, and that's the kind of message that you're going to use. Again, it's your cover message for chapter 11. Before your resume, that kind of a thing. And again, you want to gain attention in the opening. You want to select your content, organize for conviction, and drive for action in the close. So you want to use the sales techniques. These are some of the sales techniques that are useful. In selling yourself, which is what your cover message is all about. You want to learn as much as you can about the product or the service that you sell. So in chapter 11, we talk about knowing ourselves, right? Know everything about ourselves, all of our experiences, even things that we didn't get paid for, any kind of experience. Were you in a sorority or a fraternity? Were you the president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, whatever? All the experiences that you had throughout your whole life. Were you in camp? Were you, things like that, internships. Make a list about all the things that you've done in your life that have given you experience that's going to help you to sell yourself for this job. Then you're going to learn about the prospective customers. These are the employers, the prospective companies that are looking for a person to fill a position. Want to learn all you can about them, and that's what you're going to include in your cover message. You'll probably use the logical appeal here. You want to appeal to the thinking mind about saving money, having somebody that does a better job, getting better use, so on and so forth, okay? You want to sell yourself to the best of your ability. So the sales message plan begins with words that set up the sales presentation and gain attention. You might want to start by quoting some of the qualifications that the job advertisement is asking for. There's sample letters in the textbook that can show you what I'm talking about there. You be imaginative and use persuasive language. Talk about the achievements that you have. Give examples. It's basically a summary of what your resume is going to be all about. Okay, then you want to drive in for the sale. Make it clear. Use the appropriate strength. Urge the immediate action. So in other words, if you might want to say something about I look forward to hearing from you within the next couple of weeks, or I'll follow up with you in 2 weeks to find out the status of interviews and so on, that kind of a thing. Okay, so that's pretty much it, and I just wanted to wish you all good luck on all of this. And if you've already submitted your rewrite on the benchmark writing assignment, I'm going to go into Blackboard and I'm going to allow you guys 2 attempts. So if you feel that you would like to redo it in order to meet the message plan and the things that I just talked about here, then you can go ahead and do that. All right, so you got plenty of time. Lastly, I want you to know that for all of the assignments that are coming up due here now in these last couple of weeks, for week 7 and week 8, you have until the end of next week. Just make sure that you get it to me in time so that I can get the grading done in a timely manner so that I can submit the final grades by the following Friday, which is my deadline. Okay, so I will make sure that I email this to you guys as well. I hope this is helpful, and I hope that you guys have a great week. So thanks for everything, and I will be talking with you later. Bye-bye.